Chapter 74. Sword and Sword Duo. In such a state, the true essence within Kang Chon's body continued to condense and concentrate, evolving towards a deeper level. At the same time, his cultivation increased at an extremely rapid rate. 4th turn middle, 4th turn late, 5th turn. In the middle of the tomb chamber, the old man operated his boundless divine abilities, causing the thick heaven and earth spiritual chi to surge towards the tomb chamber like a flood that had reached an extinct embankment. And instantly, the quality of the heaven and earth spiritual chi within the entire tomb chamber was hardened by hundreds of levels. In the midst of such thick heaven and earth spiritual chi, the little girl very wisely chose to cultivate immediately, absorbing the thick heaven and earth spiritual chi within the chamber with all her might. The tomb chamber was filled with such a thick spiritual chi. Cultivating here for a day was completely comparable to cultivating outside for several months, and no one would let go of such a heavenly opportunity. Both Kang Chon and the little girl's cultivation levels were growing rapidly. The old man looked at the two of them with a smile, a look of appreciation in his eyes, as he softly said, "Worthy of Kang Chon's dominating blood." Instantly comprehending the mood in the portrait, "I wonder how far you brats will be able to go in the end." In front of the old man, Kang Chon stood with his eyes closed, his entire body falling into a marvelous state. The Kang Chon hegemony blood in his body boiled, blazing purple light transmitting out of his body, illuminating the entire chamber. The old man's gaze was locked and his mouth set. The talent of the Kang Chon hegemony blood left him in awe. Unlike the little girl, who absorbed the surrounding heaven and earth aura in a regular manner, Kang Chon, who possessed the Kang Chon hegemony blood, was completely plundering all the heaven and earth aura in the surrounding space, which simply broke the common sense. There were many powerful physics in the world, but the only one capable of absorbing heaven and earth aura in such an almost predatory manner was the Kang Chon hegemony blood. As Kang Chon absorbed the surrounding heaven and earth aura senselessly, the thick aura of the tomb room began to slowly decrease, and the old man saw this and once again used his heavenly means to mobilize the entire heaven and earth aura around Fengdu Mountain. According to reason, this kind of commotion will certainly attract the attention of the Fengdu Mountain corpse catching sex experts. But the entire Fengdu Mountain is still in silence. No one is surprised by the sudden riot of heaven and earth spiritual chi. All of this Kang Chon did not know. His mind was immersed in a marvelous state of mind at the moment. It was as if he had merged with the magnificent figure in the portrait, and his entire being had sublimated to an unattainable realm. This marvelous realm, and Kang Chon unable to extricate himself, he unconsciously operated the heavenly canon, and the true essence in his body began to condense and compress, along with the operation of the gong method, evolving towards a deeper level. The compression of the true yuan would inevitably have to absorb a portion of the spiritual chi to replenish it. So Kang Chon's body unconsciously began to absorb the heaven and earth spiritual chi from the outside world, which was used to replenish the consumption of the compressed true yuan. Under this state, Kang Chon's cultivation continued to skyrocket. From the 4th turning realm, he entered the 5th turning realm all of a sudden, and continued to rise. 4 days later, Kang Chon was still immersed in this marvelous realm. His own cultivation had received a terrifying boost, and had already reached the 6th turn from the 5th turn, and it hadn't stopped yet. After another 3 days, the little girl woke up from her cultivation. Her eyes were flashing with essence. Her entire aura had increased by several times. She had obviously gained a lot of benefits during these 7 days of cultivation. The little white face hasn't woken up yet. The little girl looked towards the heavens and suddenly exclaimed in shock, "This is intent." Her eyes were wide with disbelief. In the tomb chamber, Kang Chon stood with his eyes closed, his entire body emitting a radiant purple light. He was like the magnificent figure shown in the portrait, exuding an invincible and domineering aura. The little girl used the strength of her entire body before she could resist this invincible, overbearing aura, her little face filled with shock. This kid has amazing talent. I didn't expect that he would be able to comprehend the idea. Even though it's only one layer, it's not to be underestimated. The old man also sighed. It must be known that, in general, only when one reaches the ushering stage can one be born with intent. And when intent is cultivated to the 10th layer, it will be transformed into divine intent. And when divine intent goes out of the body, it will be the out-of-body stage. It could be said that Kang Chon had now gone ahead of many of his peers. This little white boy has such talent. It's simply heavenly. This young lady is not convinced. The little girl had a face of envy and jealousy. Girl, don't be discouraged. Your talent isn't bad either. The old man laughed. Suddenly his eyes narrowed and said, "He's awake." The little girl instantly looked towards Kang Chon, her two big round eyes flashing with curiosity. In front of him, Kang Chon's overbearing aura violently converged. The blazing purple light around him also gradually disappeared. His eyes slowly opened, like a rising sun, instantly blossoming out to purple rays. "Ah, little white boy, you bully." The little girl was unable to open her eyes from the light, and hurriedly covered her eyes with her hands, gritting her teeth and screaming, "Ha! Who let you, little girl, stare with your eyes wide open?" Kang Chon laughed. The light in his eyes dissipated, and his entire body returned to its original state. Only the discerning could see that his aura had changed greatly, reaching an unfathomable level. "Not bad, not bad." The old man's eyes flickered with essence, carefully sizing up Kang Chon once, and said appreciatively. Kang Chon smiled and hurriedly thanked him. "I would also like to thank Senior for making this possible. I am grateful." Only Kang Chon himself knew how much benefit he had received this time. Just his own cultivation, he had already reached the 7th turn realm from the 4th turn, and all the true essence in his body had been transformed into purple true essence, both in terms of quality and quantity. It was far more than earlier. Of course, the more important thing was that he had comprehended the idea of hegemony, which caused his hegemony fist to reach a new level, and this was his biggest gain. Therefore, Kang Chon was grateful to the old man in front of him in his heart. "Little white boy, don't be complacent too early. This young lady has already reached the 4th level of the Jiden stage. Right now you're not this young lady's opponent. Be careful of this young lady beating you up like a pig's head." The little girl on the side called out with a face full of jealousy. "Little girl, play aside." Kang Chon waved his hand, too lazy to pay attention to this girl. But then again, he really wasn't the little girl's opponent right now, after all. The little girl was not only at the 4th level of the Jiden stage, she was also an 8th-turn Silver Dan. And the two sides weren't in the same class at all right now. However, Kang Chon believed that as long as he broke through the Jiden stage, the little girl would not be his opponent at all. But he wanted to form the 9th transformation Golden Dan, so he needed to continue suppressing his cultivation for now. HMPH. The little girl bristled and snorted coldly. As Kang Chon and the little girl awoke, the old man activated his divine ability and dispersed the thick heaven and earth aura in the tomb chamber. However, the transition picture was still floating in mid-air, only with less blazing light. It looked very ordinary. Kang Chon stared carefully at the ghostly mask on the face of the middle-aged man in the portrait and asked the old man beside him, saying, "Senior, do you know the origin of this ghostly mask? I once saw some disciples of the corpse-catching sect all wearing similar masks as well." "Che, how boring. It's just an ordinary mask." The little girl sniffed and ran to the side to study the old man's black coffin. It looks like this girl intends to not even let go of her master's coffin. What a devil. Kang Chon couldn't help but mourn for the old man, accepting such a disciple. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. The old man did not care, put away the portrait and smiled faintly. This mask has been worn since Bur's birth. No one knows its origin. The corpse-catching sect, because of their gratitude for Buz's kindness, created a similar mask as a symbol of the corpse-catching sect. Kid, why are you asking this? Nothing. Pure curiosity, Kang Chon hurriedly said, but his heart was deep in thought. Now he could be sure that his mysterious father and this bar had an unusual relationship. Most likely, this bar was his old ancestor, which would explain the ghost face mask as well as the reason why he possessed Kang Chon's blood. However, his intuition told Kang Chon that things were not so simple and that there were secrets hidden that he did not know. Kid, things have been getting more and more hectic in Fengdu Mountain lately. You and this girl better hurry up and leave. Remember, you guys should not get involved in the muddy waters of Fengdu Mountain. Kang Chon was still pondering when the old man suddenly issued his resignation. Kang Chon looked regretful. He still had a lot of questions he wanted to ask the old man, but the old man didn't give them time to consider. And with a wave of his hand, he sent them out of Fengdu Mountain. What a cheap bastard. It's not just removing a coffin board. At the foot of Fengdu Mountain, the little girl hugged a black coffin board and cursed. Kang Chon's face was filled with black lines. He finally knew why that old man was so eager to send them away. On the vast Fengdu Mountain, the yin qi was getting heavier and heavier. The entire mountain range was covered by thick dark clouds, and the mournful cries of ghosts and wolves were unceasing and chilling. Over these days, the visions emanating from Fengdu Mountain had become stronger and stronger, even allowing the residents of Fengdu City to hear the hair-raising mournful hissing sounds. More and more cultivators began to gather in Fengdu City, and a stormy event was about to kick off. At the foot of the mountain, Kang Chon looked speechlessly at the little girl holding a black coffin board in front of him. He felt an incomparable headache. This girl had even removed her master's coffin board. It was simply deceiving her master. Kang Chon couldn't help but mourn for that old man. Little white boy, what are you looking at? This young lady is studying art for the sake of it. It's not as sordid as you think, the little girl said with a tigerish little face and wide eyes. Che. Kang Chon sniffed. This girl was full of crooked reasoning. It was better to stay away from her as early as possible. This trip to Fengdu, he had harvested quite a lot, not to mention that his own cultivation had reached the 7th turn realm. He had also comprehended the hegemonic idea, and at the same time, he had learnt some information about his father, which made him feel that it was a worthwhile trip. Hey, little girl, let's part ways here and never meet again. Bye, Kang Chon said to the little girl. He felt that it was time for him to leave this little devil, or else sooner or later, he would be pulled into the devil's abyss by this girl. Little white boy, you really think that this young lady is happy to be with you? Next time don't let this young lady see you, or I'll beat you up once I see you. Humph. The little girl sniffed coldly and carried the coffin board, swooshing, flying towards the sky, and then disappeared into the sky. Kang Chon breathed a sigh of relief, finally getting rid of this little devil. He opened his arms, stretched his waist, striding towards the direction of Haoyu residence. Having left for so many days, he didn't know what had happened in Fengdu City. Counting the time, the date of his appointment with Overlord Warrior Wu Gang seemed to have arrived. Just at this time, a ray of light in the sky came. After this ray of light, there are 3 other rays of light to catch up at great speed. Kang Chon's eyes were sharp, and immediately saw that the person leading the way was the little girl, who seemed to be very angry, running while cursing angrily towards the back. Stinking old man, how dare you bully the few with the many? This young lady will not let you go. The little girl cursed loudly and angrily, her face full of indignation. HMPH, little girl, your breath is not small. Hand over the treasure weapon, if you are sensible, or else I will let you die without a whole body. Closely behind the little girl was a black-clothed old man and 2 youths. The 3 of them were traveling with their swords, Their huge aura was palpitating,